Hi guys, and welcome to my birth story. Yes, I am finally filming this for you guys and I'm going to get it up today hopefully. It's been a whirlwind 6 weeks and I just haven't, that's a whole different video, but I'm finally getting it done today. I love these videos. For me personally, they are my favourite videos to go through YouTube and listen to. I think it kind of comes natural being a mum, or even just being female. We're always interested in each other's like birth stories and how they went through their labours and things like that. So this is one video that I have been really wanting to do and really wanting to get up. And so I'm finally doing it. So let's get started. I'm not going to muck around. It may be really rattled off because it's such a long video. There's a lot to it. I'm going to try and skip through as much as possible without making this video so lengthy because there is a lot to it. So let's get started. As you all know, I was going in to be induced on the Wednesday. I was 38 weeks pregnant. I will put some links below if you don't know why I was being induced and all of that kind of thing. So we went in Wednesday morning, 7:30. She checked me and I just wasn't ready. My body was not ready to go yet. So I had my first lot of gel and we just went about the day. I had Jono with me, my husband, and I had one of my sisters with me, and then later on in the day my other sister and my mum joined me, and I kind of had friends just coming in and out. So at 2 o'clock Wednesday afternoon she checked me again and that Prostin gel hadn't done anything, and so I had my second lot of Prostin and we went about the afternoon and the evening and nothing happened, so they never checked me again. So that was the first day. That was Wednesday. So I slept well that day. Jono went home and got a good night's sleep and everything like that. So Thursday morning, Jono came back into the hospital in case something could happen. She checked me and I still wasn't ready to go. My body just hadn't changed, so I had my third lot of Prostin, and we walked around. I tried to get things going, and Thursday afternoon she came in and checked me again. Nothing. So I had my fourth lot of Prostin. By now I was getting quite frustrated, but I had to keep reminding myself that I was 2 weeks early, and yeah, so fourth lot of Prostin Thursday evening. I had been in hospital for about nearly 2 days really at this stage. So that was at 2 o'clock. I say evening, but it was about 2 o'clock. And then I started niggling a little bit. And so they put me on the monitor to check, and while I was lying on the monitor I started getting some really horrible back pain. And I had like this horrible back pain that was there constantly no matter how I moved, and then I had front pains that were kind of coming and going, and they were showing up on the monitor. So we started getting quite excited, thinking this was it, this was like the beginning of something. And the midwife was like, yep, could be, see how you go. So I lay in the bed and kind of was on the monitor for a while just watching them. Bubby was happy, and they were quite bad for me. I feel that they were quite bad. I was kind of tossing and turning, and I was just like, this has to be it. I can't deal with this anymore. But I would find that if I kind of rolled onto my side, it would take a little bit of the edge off. So I thought, okay, Bubby's kind of maybe on a nerve. That's what's causing this back pain. But I was having cramps in the front, and they were showing on the monitor. So that was Thursday evening, and in the end she goes, let me have a look. Let me give you a check and see if you are dilating or not. So she had a look, and no, nothing was happening. So she said, okay, I'm going to leave you to it, and we'll just see how you go. So I had 4 Prostin gels by then and been in there for nearly 2 days. I niggled all night. Jono stayed with me because we honestly thought that something was going to happen. I niggled all night. I was up all night, no sleep, very uncomfortable, paced around the maternity ward, and kind of early hours of the morning it died off. I was so upset because I was like, I needed that sleep. If nothing was going to happen, I needed that sleep. But I thought hopefully it had progressed me somewhat so they could break my waters. So Friday morning I had now been in there for 48 hours. Yeah, 48 hours I think. Coming up to my 6th examination, she had a look and said, no, nothing's progressed. You're still not going anywhere. I think now and then when they looked, they would say, oh, your cervix is a little bit more anterior, or it's a little bit softer, but generally nothing was happening, so they could break my waters. So that put me into a whole spin. I was just like, I've been up all night contracting, and she was like, no, that could have actually been the prostin doing that to you. And I was like, they were on the machine last night. She's like, yeah, your uterus can react to the prostin, but not in the way we would hope it would. And I was just beside myself. John Ho was beside himself, and I was just over it. So I had my 5th lot of prostin. This was Friday morning. I'd been in there since Wednesday morning. So they sent the surgeon in to talk to me, and he was lovely, and I just said to him I can't do it anymore, and I was just tired and emotional and sore from so many hands being rammed up there. And so he said to me tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, I was going to be booked for a cesarean. So I thought, okay, well, I've just got to get through today, and then one way or another this baby will be here the next morning. I don't know how I felt about that. I really just wanted it over, and I felt a lot more calmer knowing that, okay, I'm going to have a cesarean, but then I was scared of surgery because of my past. But then I didn't want to deal with a natural birth by now. I always wanted a natural birth, but by now I was just over it. I just didn't know what I wanted. So they gave me my 5th lot of prostin. I think I just said that. And I went about my day and let people know the plans, and I kind of just came to the realization that I was going to have a Caesar, and that I just had to wait today out. So Friday afternoon came around, because they check you twice a day, as you've probably seen how I'm saying this. And Friday afternoon came around, she checked me, and she's like, no, nothing, you're a little bit softer, but nothing's going on. And I was like, okay, well, that's fine, I'm going to have cesarean tomorrow, which I still wasn't happy about, but I was like, okay, whatever. And so she gave me my 6th lot of prostin, and it was my last lot of prostin. They said that I'd actually overdone it anyway. They usually don't give people that much prostin, and usually they give you a day's rest at about the 3rd to 4th lot of prostin. So I had quite a bit by this stage, but this was my last dose, and this was my last internal and everything like that. So I was walking around, so that was about 2 o'clock Friday afternoon. And so I was kind of walking around. Me and my husband went for a walk down to the cafeteria. I was kind of pacing the steps, pacing the ward, thinking, if I can get this going on my own, then okay, but what will be, will be. And those niggles kind of started up again, that I was getting. And this time I was like, it's just the prostin, and I'm sick of it, and I just wanted to rest. And I was bouncing on the birth ball, and no one was with me at that stage. Everyone had kind of gone. This was late afternoon. Now this was coming into the evening now. Everyone had gone home for showers and just whatever, because my mum, my sisters, my husband, they'd been waiting days as well, and they were coming and going from the hospital. And so the Friday evening I was sitting there on the birth ball, and I kind of had pains coming and going, nothing regular. I wasn't even going to tell the midwives. And she came in, the midwife that had just come on shift came in. I remember her name was Jenny. She came in, and she kind of said to me, how are you feeling? And I said to her, I'm having a cesarean tomorrow. And she asked me how I felt about that, and we had a good talk about it all. And I said to her, she said to me, do you want me to check you tonight, or are you done? Are you over it? And I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be checked anymore. I'm sore, and I just can't do it anymore. And she said, okay, that's fine. About an hour later, so about 8:30, she came back in to see me, and I had kind of changed my mind, and I said to her, can we just go on the monitor and check how baby's doing and see if these niggles that are coming and going are anything? So she put me on the monitor, and you could kind of see them kind of coming and going. By this stage, my husband had come back to see me for a few hours, and so when she came back in, she said baby looked good, and those kind of looked like contractions on the monitor, like they were kind of 10 minutes apart. And I said to her, I can feel them. She goes, do you want me to do one more internal? And I was like, okay, just one more. And she said, I'm not going to try and do anything fancy. She goes, if I can't break your waters, because by this stage I'd had 6 prostins, I wasn't having any more. The doctors had ruled it at that because I'd already had too much. So she said, I can have a look. If I can break your waters, I will, but I'm not going to go to extremes to do it. We'll just have a quick look. I was like, okay. So I lay down, and it was the most painful internal ever, because by now I've lost count of how many internals I've had. And she kind of had the hook ready just in case, and she had her hands up there and she was pressing on my tummy. She said she wasn't going to do anything fancy, but I think she was determined to get this done. She knew deep down for me I wanted it done. And so she had the hook up there and she kept saying to me, "Are you having a contraction? Are you having a contraction?" I'm like, "No, not yet." I'd been having them, now that it stopped. I was like, "No, nothing's happening." And she goes, "Okay." And she sat there with the hook in her hand up there, just waiting, just kind of, But she said, "Just tell me if you do have one." And luckily I did kind of start feeling my stomach harden. I said, "I might be having one now. It's nothing painful, but my stomach's kind of hardened up." She goes, "Okay, okay." And it was painful and I could feel her wriggling around, and honestly it took about 10 minutes. She was up there for a good 10 minutes, no exaggeration. And she was like hooking around and I'm like trying to stay on the bed, and then she just slowly pulls her hand out and goes, "Done." And I was like, "What?" And my husband like grinned, because by now we're all over it. We just want this baby out. He grinned, and I was like, "Did you break my water?" She's like, "Yeah, it's just trickling out at the moment." I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And I just started bawling because I knew, I think because I was so tired from being in hospital for that many days, I was so sore and emotional, I just lost it. I was just like, I knew what I was in for now. I was like, "Oh my god, now I've got to give birth. Like, this is actually happening." So I sat there and had a bit of a bawling session, and my husband, I think it was my husband, text a few people to say, "Finally, it's happening." And I texted my mum and said that Jono would be down to pick her and my sister up fairly quickly because my waters are broken. So at some point overnight, I was going to have to go into labour. They don't leave your waters, I was being induced. One or another, I would have to have that baby now. So my husband ran off to pick him up, pick my mum and my sister up. And when I got up, my waters fully broke on their own. Like, she had done it, but they just broke. And let me tell you, they did not stop running until that baby was born. My whole labour, they were just running. So I'm waddling the halls with the towel between my legs, and she said to me, "You've got till midnight to go into labour on your own, or we need to start the drip." So that was at 9 o'clock. So my mum and my sister turned up, and we just paced the halls. We got moved into our labour and delivery room. I bounced in the ball. I did what I could. Had the odd contraction, had the odd pain, but nothing. So at midnight, she put the drip in, and I had to have antibiotics because I'm group strep B positive. So I had those antibiotics. They put the drip in, which, let me tell you, was not pleasant, but we got it. And she started the drip. This is where I get really confused, and I have my labour notes. When you're in labour, when you're going through that kind of thing, you have no concept of time. So when I read through these and the times, I'm like, really? Did that happen at that time? Because I just thought that I felt like that it just went on and on to me. So this was at midnight. I started the drip, and my mum, Jono, and Samantha were there. At about so to begin with, when she started the drip, oh my goodness, I didn't start contracting. I know that much. Sorry. So I know that I didn't start contracting. I was lying there, I was quite happy, and everyone was talking. And she came in at about, I think she came in at about 1:30 and said, "This is going to be a very long night for you." I wasn't contracting yet, and she said that she just has to slowly up the oxytocin drip, and that she can't really check me again until I had gone into full labour and had been labouring for 4 hours. So it was going to be a very long time before she even checked me again, and just all of that kind of stuff. At that point, my mum and my sister decided to go home, only because I was so tired. It was going to be such a long night. They were tired, and we just did not know what was going to happen. And I was scared. I've had my mum at both my other births, and I loved having her there, because they were just natural, smooth births. And my sister had never seen a birth before, and I was worried for her as well. And when my mum mentioned just going home, because I think she was a bit worried to watch me go through that, and they could be there all night and nothing really happens. So my husband shot them home and then shot back. So it was just him and me there. And so just every like half an hour to an hour, she would just up the oxytocin. I had to be on the monitor the whole time. Now and then she'd let me off to kind of walk around to try and get things going. She had a real hard time keeping the monitors on my tummy to get the contractions for some reason. But at about 2:30, they finally kicked in, my contractions, and they kicked in, so I was like, you know, actually getting up and sort of rocking, and they started making me feel like I would kind of sit there and go, oh, like, you know, make the noises and kind of swear a little bit. And she came in and she had a look and she kind of watched me for a little bit. She goes, finally, this is what we want to be hearing and seeing. So this was, I would say labour probably actually kicked in at about 2:30. So my water's been broken at 9, and 2:30 in the morning my labour kicked in, and I was kind of doing 3 contractions in 10 minutes. And so she got me a heat pack, and I kind of just got on with it. I had to sit on the side of the bed. I got on the birth ball, but I couldn't go far because I was on the monitor. And so 3 o'clock, she upped it again, and they were getting a little bit more painful. And then she says it here because I was just, honestly, these contractions were just, they got very painful very quickly. And they reckon it's because I'd had so much Pitocin that the contractions, I had so much Pitocin that my uterus was a bit weird anyway now, and then the oxytocin doesn't help, it kicks you into full gear. So I was finding that the contractions were kind of coming back to back, and so I did tell her that, and I was kind of not getting too much rest in between. And at about 4:30, she's written that I found contractions painful, but they were still getting like more and more painful. Like I didn't feel like I was at the end of it yet. They were kind of coming, and Bubby was doing well and everything like that. So we just got on with it. So I've been in labour for about 2.5 hours, and then about 5 o'clock, she had a look. She did my first VE, like my first examination since I've been in labour. I hadn't had one since like midnight, and she had a look, and I was 4 centimetres. So I had been labouring now for about 3 hours, and I was 4 centimetres, and she said the baby still hadn't come down enough, and it was just going to be a long night. We hadn't slept all night, and I gave in and asked her for an epidural because the contractions were just back to back. The intensity was incredible. And I never wanted an epidural, but it was just, I was like, if I am 4 centimetres, I can't do this anymore. So the anaesthetist came in at 5:30, and I was scared for an epidural because I had one with Jaden, and it wasn't very pleasant, and so I was scared, and I told him I was scared, and he said that he would try and do it as fast as he could. So and so they got me some gas, and he said puff away on this and I'll get it done as soon as I could. So I was puffing on this gas, trying to get through these contractions, and let me tell you, that gas was amazing. Like, it was, honestly, I would just take the gas and I just wouldn't stop breathing it in. I was just like, I'm just going to breathe in this gas, get myself as high as I can through this whole epidural. So I'm breathing away on this gas. I find myself so high on it that I can't function properly. And I'm like, I need to let myself come down. I'm curled over into this hunch for him to do it. And I'm waiting for, so I let myself come down. I'm like, right, you know, I'm through this epidural. It's done. I get there, like, I feel better again. I'm like, is it done? And they're like, oh no, we thought that you were having a contraction, so we thought we'd leave you to get through it. And I was like, you said breathe in the gas. So I sat there, I was like, just do it. And he numbed my back, which was fine, it's just a few pinpricks. Then he stuck the needle in, and I felt it just rip through my hip. Like, I felt this just shock shoot through my hip. And I think because I was so emotionally and physically drained by this point, this was 5:30 in the morning, I'd been up since 12, I told him to leave. He said, no, I'll put it in now. You know, he goes, I need to pull the needle back out and put it back in. I was like, no, you can leave. I'm not doing this anymore. So he left. And once he left, I broke down completely because I was like, you know, if I just let him finish, it would be done by now. I would be numb. I started panicking about what if things go wrong in this labour. I could have been, at least I was numb, ready for a cesarean. What if baby comes out funny and I need to be cut? At least I could be numb. I just lost my stuff. But the midwife kind of just said, you know, carry on. You can do this. So I had the gas, and she's like 5:30. She's written Emma becoming quite distressed. Emma quite distressed with epidural needle and has asked anaesthetist to leave. There you go. So about 7 o'clock in the morning, it said I'm contracting regularly and Emma very distressed. I was more than distressed. I have never felt pain in my life like this. These contractions were back to back. I continually was telling her that the baby must be coming. Like, I was going through transition. I can't do this anymore. I was screaming. I wasn't so much screaming. There was a lot of yelling. A lot of yelling. The contraction would come down again, and I would kind of just take a breath and it would hit again. And I remember sitting there and going, no, 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 please don't, please don't. And like, you know, like I was talking to the contractions. I was like, you can't do this. I was taking that gas in so much. Like, I think I spent the whole labour from this point high. I could feel myself like risen above everyone. I got to a point where I had taken in so much gas, the room and everything was white, and everyone felt so far away I couldn't comprehend where it was. I was just trying to keep myself away from the contractions. It was that bad. So I'd been in labour for about, if I say I went into labour about 2:33, is now 6:50 or so, and the midwife called in my backup midwife to take over my care. The hospital midwife, sorry, called in my midwife who had to go away. So I had the backup midwife who was lovely. And she came in and she walked in, and I remember saying to her, I'm being that person. I didn't think I would be her, but I am that person. I am yelling, I'm screaming. She's like, you can yell and scream all you like, that's fine. And so I did. And honestly, like, all I did was yell and scream and take in this gas for the next like hour or so. It was I just have never experienced anything like that in my life. Honestly, I don't know. At 8 o'clock, I kept saying to her, can you check me? I want you to check how far through I am. I have to be close. This baby's got to be coming. And she's like, okay, I'll give you a check. But she didn't really want to, because I had only been checked a few hours prior, and they're not actually allowed to unless I feel like the baby's coming or anything like that. And so I started saying to her, get the anaesthetist back in here then. If you're not going to check me, get this anaesthetist back in here, because I can't do this anymore. It was hell. The whole thing was hell. So she walked out to get the anaesthetist, and I started kind of at the peak of my contractions, felt like without meaning to, I'd give a little push. And so I was kind of like, I need to push, and she's like, no you don't, you know, just calm down. I was like, can you please just check me? So she's written here, so she checked me at 8 o'clock finally, because I was just like, look, you need to check me. And so she did check me. She had actually just gone out to ring the anaesthetist to come back in. And she checked me, and I was at a 6 to a 7. So I was, sorry, if I go back, I was 4 centimetres at 5 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, so 3 hours later, I was 6 to 7 centimetres and fully effaced. But she does say here that Bubby's head still wasn't positioned on the cervix right. So she said to me, you know, the anaesthetist is coming to do epidural. You could still be a few hours away from doing this yet. This was at 8 o'clock. At 8:10, she said here that I keep getting very distressed, and I'm talking that I have got increased pressure in my bum. And I did, and I kept telling her that. I was like, I can feel this baby, and he's going to come out. And she's like, you're only 6 or 7 centimetres, Bubby's head isn't ready to come yet. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm feeling it. So at 8:20, she said to me, I'm just going to walk out and ring the surgeon, because I think there was some sort of plan that by now the surgeon had to come and see me anyway, depending how long I'd been in labour for. As she walked out of the room, bearing in mind 20 minutes beforehand I was only 6 to 7 centimeters, I just yelled and I was like, he is in my bum. And Jono said that he can remember me yelling and the whole hospital would have heard me yell that. And she laughed and I was like, come in here, he is in my bum, like he is coming. I could feel that when I'd get halfway through the contraction, my whole body would kind of bear down and want to push him, and I could just suddenly feel that he was right there. And I felt like a couple contractions later, I kind of felt like the contractions sort of started stopping to a point, like that my contractions were dying away, but the pressure down there was enough pressure to not give me any relief. The contractions had died, but this pressure, and I said to her, he's in my bum, I need to get him out. So by this time she had come back in and she said, okay, I'll have a quick little look. She had a look and she said, just give me a little push. So I gave her a little push and she did say, you know, oh, there's a bit of, you know, she could tell that maybe baby was right there. So she, yeah, it skipped a lot because a lot happened. So that was at 8:20 that I did that, and she had a look and she's like, you can push if you like and see what happens. So at about 8:30 I started pushing and I just kind of sat there and I just did, I think I did like one kind of big push and made a bit of progress. She said that she could kind of see the tip of Bubby's head and everything, and Jono said that he could see the tip of baby's head. And so I just took one more breath in and I pushed, and I could feel like it's so weird compared to the other births, how every birth is different. I didn't feel this kind of thing having Bentley. I was standing up having Bentley and I just didn't get all this sensation. But I felt with that one push, I felt Grayson's head come down and around that pubic bone. I felt his head being born, and I have never felt so much relief in all my life. And she told me to stop for a second and slow breathe. The cord was around Grayson's neck, but he was absolutely fine. And she said to me, one more push and this is all over. And I remember saying to her, no, I'm not pushing, because I just knew that even though it was one more push and one more weird pain, it was that feeling, all the little bones and that slide out. I was like, no, I can't. And I kind of stopped for a second. And she's like, one more push, Emma, and you will get him out. I took a breath and I pushed him out and I just bawled. I could not believe. So he was born at 8:35 in the morning. I had been in active labour since about, I was 4 centimetres at, oh, I'm bad. I was 4 centimetres at 5. So I think they count, I was in active labour at about 3 in the morning. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I was in active labour for about 5.5 hours, but I had been in hospital for like 3 days. I'd had no sleep. That night we had been up, my waters broke at 9. Bubby was born nearly 12 hours later, so we'd been up all night. It was just exhausting. Those contractions were the worst things I've ever felt. I've never yelled, I've never screamed so much in my life. It just was not the labour that I had wanted. It was not what I had pictured. It was nothing like the other 2 boys. Like the other 2 boys just seemed so simple compared to this one. Just all the oxytocin, all the gels that I'd had, I was just, when he was born, I just burst into tears. It was over, it was done. She gave him to me and I pulled him up and I was like, he's tiny, we all knew he was going to be small, but I just could not believe how small this baby was. Even Jono cried. We were just like, I was just so thankful that this was over. She did active management with my placenta, so I held Bubby and she just gave me a shot, and we delivered the placenta quite soon after. And then I was kind of just wrapped up. I didn't tear. I've never torn with any of my labours. Everything was fine down there. I was cleaned up, given a blanket. I just sat there with him. If you have a look through where I introduced Grayson a few videos back, you'll see where I'm kind of holding him. And like those were like brand new photos, those ones were. And I asked Jono to get my phone for me, because the one thing I really wanted to do, the one thing that I had wanted to do since before I even fell pregnant with Grayson, was I always wanted to do that phone call to tell my mum that my baby had been born, if my mum wasn't at the labour. Mum knew I'd been in labour, but she didn't want to interrupt us, so all night she had lost a lot of sleep waiting for me to have this baby. She was very nervous. We all thought I'd end up in a Cesarean. We did not know what was going to happen. So I found out later on that she had actually texted Jono to ask how I was doing, and that was around the 6 or 7 mark, and apparently Mum was just beside herself because I'd been going for so long, and she felt I had so long to go too. But like I said in my story, I went from 6 to 7 to fully dilated in like 20 minutes. We didn't see that coming. So there's a picture in that video, I'll link it down below, where I've got my phone in my hand, and a lot of people are probably like, you know, why are you bothering with your phone? You've just had your baby. But it's me making that phone call to my mum. Like, I'm trying to find my mum's name in it, and I rang her, and she must have seen, obviously, my name come up on her phone, and she's like, hello, and I was like, Mum, he's here, and I burst into tears, and you could tell that Mum was trying not to burst into tears, and I was saying to Mum, you know, all gone well. It hadn't, but in general, it gone well, and I was like, he's here, he's healthy, I did it naturally, and that was probably the best moment, that, making that phone call. I had been waiting to make that phone call, so, that was, I loved it. Ooh. But yeah, Bubby got the vitamin K injection, Jono dressed him, I had his birth check, Jono dressed him, and then I was able to get up and go and have a shower about half an hour later or so, which is the worst bit. That sucks. You know, just that initial, I was so shaky. They got me a Milo and toast, and that's great too, actually. I've never loved Milo and toast so much in my life than I do after I give birth to my babies. So I was just, you know, you do forget once the baby's born. But that labour, I will never forget in general. That labour, I am sure I don't want any more kids now. That, I know labour sucks. Labour's hard. Labour's long. Labour is never easy. But when you have straightforward births, they're so simple to get over. This labour will say etched in my mind for a very long time. I've just never experienced anything like this in my life. So that was my birth story, guys. I'm sorry if I rambled a lot, but like, it was kind of like a boring birth story. It's not like I was at home and I woke up in labour and I had a shower and I did this and I did that and dropped the kids off, and you know, I was in hospital and it was just a gradual process. But that is the labour that I had. It was a long haul, as you guys all know. You know, you all knew that I was going on Wednesday morning. He was born Saturday morning, so it was a very long haul. But he is here now. He is so healthy. He's 6 weeks old now. He's just had his 6 weeks immunisations. And yeah, we're so grateful for him, and we're just so grateful that in the end it all did go well. I was so pleased in hindsight, like when I had him and I was sitting there bawling and like just losing my shit. I remember saying, I did it naturally. I was so pleased that epidural had failed, because I felt, not that there's anything wrong with epidurals, like I said I was going to have one, but I went through all that, I felt all that, you know, and I was just so proud of myself. I was so pleased that in hindsight we didn't have to have the Cesarean. I was so glad that I was able to do it. But the way that the labour went, I've had a little bit of trouble, and still am having trouble accepting that the labour went that way. But it is what it is, and it's over now, and he's here, and we're both safe and healthy. Anyway, guys, thank you for sticking around if you're still listening. That is my birth story. That is how our little Grayson entered the world, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.